Hello. Thank you for listening. This is the near death experience of Alba. Open quote. Many people are losing a child under various circumstances, and always the whole surroundings, family, and friends are concerned with this. Many people have the need to read about what was helping others in their sorrow. Following a life threatening accident at the ICU, I had a near death experience together with my dying child, being in another hospital at a children ICU, and who was dying like myself and was clinically dead after more than 1 hour. All this without myself knowing this. This experience in this situation completely changed my worldview and turned the parameters of my inner convictions upside down. I was confronted with things suddenly reaching me as a truth that until then I never understood nor considered as essential. My biggest help in my great sorrow during this near death experience came from my deceased child when she, after I understood her most important messages, could let go as she reached the most important goal in her life in fixing everything before her death. I knew that she only could leave in freedom if she had been telling me all I had to know to be in a position to deal with this unexpected bad situation in order for me to freely accept and understand everything. At the same time, I had been giving my dying child her biggest joy and taken away her biggest burden, and I equally received at the same time the greatest gift through this encounter with my dying child and the perspective I got through this encounter. The greatest gift is the certainty that many things in reality are completely different as they seem, and that we often consider important things as unimportant and unimportant things as very important. That is not indifferent how we pass our own life, how we pass our own lifetime, and that it's not indifferent how the balance of our life shows up. To the contrary, this life's balance is the most important thing for every human being, and it became the top most important standard for me. It's not indifferent if we made our peace when we die. Quite the opposite. Having my life balance straightened out has since been my utmost priority and has changed my life radically. And it gave me the certainty that my deceased child and we all are also safe and loved in our darkest hours, very often without being aware of, and that death never again can take away our gratitude for her existence, even though it was rather short. At the time of my near death experience, I was in ICU. Immediately after emergency surgery, I was still bleeding inside and in the process of dying. A second emergency operation shortly after my NDE literally saved my life. Together with my daughter, I had an accident. She was clinically dead, had to be resuscitated, and was transported to another hospital about an hour away and put in a children's ICU. Unfortunately, she was in an even worse condition than I was. She had no vitals except a heartbeat, no brain waves, and no own breathing. After our accident, my husband didn't try first aid or calling 911, but left with his car. Nobody knew about this, and I was compelled to deal alone with the situation. And so I reflected if my daughter would have any chance for a normal life, as in order to spare me more stress after the life-saving surgery, nobody informed me how bad her situation really was. I was in an inner turmoil and was constantly accusing my husband internally for the fact that our daughter had to wait too long for medical help. Unexpressed immense rage, mute accusations, and extreme hate towards my fate in general and towards God and especially my husband was eating me up internally. In this situation, I was blessed with a near death experience, catapulting myself into another sphere that I later called infinity, capital I. I experienced a space out of time. I had a telepathic conversation with my daughter, and she started it with prompting me to, quote, forgive him, exclamation mark. I couldn't see any sense in this. In a telepathic dialogue that I later wrote down word for word, I explained to her that I considered his attitude as unpardonable. She told me everything I needed to open up my closed-minded perspective of pride and self-righteousness, and I could understand intellectually that pardon was preferable. She disclosed that she too could forgive, but that with her it was a matter of all her life. In this moment, I suppose she was talking about a physical and mental disability and not about her own death. It was only later that I understood what she wanted to tell me, that she was at peace with her imminent death. I was shown a kind of evaluation concerning the result of our life. I was shown a huge scale, like an ancient pharmacy scale, and I was shown that my husband and I will be evaluated in exactly the same way. I was shown our best internal abilities and qualities. At the same time, the actual result at this point in time as a life balance. I was shattered, as of course in my internal state of mind, full of anger, hate, and rage, the worst fears concerning the condition of my daughter, violent internal accusations towards my husband, even though he didn't cause the accident. This result of the life balance was everything but flattering. I felt very sorry. I felt incredibly ashamed about my reactions at the events, and I deeply regretted not having listened to my daughter and not having forgiven my husband. I sensed a deep regret because seeing it retrospectively in this place, I couldn't change anything anymore. I felt a deep sorrow for this meager result. I felt a big compassion for myself and also for my husband, and I felt an intense love flooding everything at the same time with the other feelings, and strongest was my desire for pardon of my own shortcomings, and at the same time I knew that it couldn't be changed in the aftermath, what almost broke my heart. When I was thinking, now I understand everything, I suddenly was on top of my preferred mountaintop, 2,000 meters above sea level and only a few meters away from the crest. Immediately in front of myself was a simple wooden fence, as they are used for grazing livestock, with a narrow passage for hikers. Everything was completely realistic. It was about 5 a.m., and the weather conditions fitted this time. It was foggy and windy. Several times my hair was blown into my face. Suddenly, an enormous black boulder was lying in the middle of the way, at least 2 meters in height and diameter, with plenty of pointy and sharp edges. I tried to bypass it, but was absolutely impossible. At the left, there was a straight rock face. At the right, a perilously steep gradient. For the first time, I understood that my life was at stake. This black rock could easily crush me. There was no way out. Suddenly, I heard myself say, I forgive him. And the black rock was suddenly rolling down into the abyss. When I wanted to continue my way, I suddenly was catapulted back into the hospital and was under tears. I felt released, blessed, and forgiven for everything that I had been considering as a shortcoming in my life until then. I was completely at peace with my fate, with God, and the world. I was convinced that I experienced something wonderful. I wrote an SMS to my husband apologizing for my accusing him in thoughts, and that I was sure that everything would be fine, that probably our daughter would be disabled, but that we would be able to deal with all this. A few minutes later, I suddenly felt a strong heartbeat and understood that my daughter was doing badly. I was shocked, as I had just been so sure that everything would come out fine. I asked for a Bible and was reading the psalm of her birthday. At the end, it said, quote, "Lord, hear me in the hour when I'm calling you." And I knew that it was her moment of death. I conjured the nurse to call the other hospital, but apparently she was not allowed to. When the female doctor arrived an hour later, she told me that my daughter died exactly at the time when I was reading the psalm. I'm now sure that my daughter came back from infinity of her free will, getting resuscitated to give us some more time to reach me and fix everything before leaving forever. In reality, my little daughter was head and shoulders above myself concerning acceptance and forgiveness of her fate. And while in danger of death, she helped me to get most important insights and to find peace. As soon as she knew that everything had been cleared, she could let go and leave in peace. I'm incredibly grateful for her keen action and her immense help and support in this life-threatening situation. I've resolved to dedicate my whole further life in her honor. End quote. Whew, that was a tough one. So there are some questions. Question, what was your religion prior to your experience? Answer, unknown. Question, have your religious practices changed since your experience? Answer, yes, the most important is the positive balance of life. That can be compared to an internal spiritual harvest. To make sure that it is mostly positive, many persons with NDEs are sent back what they experience as an emotional hurt and rejection, whereas it is the biggest love and help from eternity. In the life review, the result of life until then is analyzed, and afterwards the return is decided for the best of the concerned person. Question, what is your religion now? Answer, unknown. Question, did your experience include features consistent with your earthly beliefs? At the time, I have had a very liberal mindset and didn't expect an evaluation or a life balance. I also didn't expect any elucidation about the issues of forgiveness. There I learned the most important thing, that in eternity, the life balance at the end of life is the only relevant thing for all people. People having an NDE got a second chance with enough time to complete the test on earth, and with this they received a huge spiritual help. Even if for many of those persons with an NDE it is felt like an emotional trauma and a big spiritual rejection, in my opinion, the purpose why we forget what we are born for and that we received a lifetime is that we shouldn't experience the incredible pain and longing that NDEers are experiencing. What happens automatically on this side when we remember eternity? At the time, I got the explanation about the life balance through my own life balance and the one of my husband's. Thus I understood why I came back because of love, and why afterwards I accepted this commitment twice through my own internal decision. My bonus is a bigger insight. My price was the loss of my daughter. However, I know 100% that we will see each other when my time here on earth, that I hope will last some more time, ends. And in eternity, a separation of 50 Earth years is only a feeling like 2 minutes. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about premortal existence? Yes. Answer is yes. My deceased daughter came to see me as a beautiful young woman with old-fashioned clothing and a hairstyle like the 20s of the last century, like in the Roaring Twenties. She was wearing the then very popular short haircut with harmonic waves tightly fitting the head and the corresponding clothes. This was totally irritating for me and was leading to all sorts of considerations about alternatives concerning hairstyle, hair length, and modern clothing that I found more attractive. For me, her old-fashioned appearance was a big diversion. A short time later, there came an acoustic detonation with an emotional lightning bolt, and I was immediately in the quote-unquote place of truth, where I was confronted with the very impressive insights that changed my inner attitude forever. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about universal connection or oneness? Answer. Yes. I got an information from my daughter about my assessment about the difference between my husband and myself, which was unsettling me very much. And seeing the door of life, I understood what she had meant. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about the existence of God? Answer. Yes. In this place of truth, it was distinctly felt that the life balance was a fair and infallible evaluation of my hetero life. At the same time, the previous life of my husband was equally evaluated as his balance of life, what confirms my point of view that I could have died through complications after the first emergency surgery, and my husband due to an accident caused by inattention and exhaustion when driving home from hospital. Through the intervention of my child during my NDE, she avoided this terrible outcome and saved my life. I'm not sure. I think that the husband had another accident. At the same time, the previous life of my husband was equally evaluated as his balance of life. So, question. During your experience, did you gain information about the meaning of life? Answer. Yes. Many people are told in their NDE that their time has not yet come and that they have to come back. This is quite painful for many people and is an emotional hurt which they could feel as a rejection. During my NDE, it was made clear that the balance of life is the most important thing in life. In fact, for eternity, the result of the life balance has to be mostly positive, which means that you have to get more than half of the effects of your life with a positive evaluation. During my stay in the place of truth, I understood that there is a seed time and a harvest. Seed time is what from eternity had been seen, analyzed, and calculated as potential. With this, there are no mistakes. This assessment is clearly flawless. The single life of man is a row of successive decisions, whereas each single minimal decision has impacts on the further course of the future. Not only your own future, but also the future of all other people that you meet. The result of all these decisions will be judged and analyzed very accurately in the life review. This balance of life is the harvest, so to say, of the single life and means more or less positive results for eternity. How important this positive balance is can be seen because many people are sent back due to the fact that the balance might be good but not good enough for the expected or calculated result of the future life balance at the later end of life. Therefore, always the explanation that there is still some work to perform. Those tasks are, so to say, like a small grain of rice for every minute of lifetime until the end of life. Also, always the indication that it is still, quote unquote, not your time. In one word, the remaining quantity of grains of rice for every minute of life is missing. The harvest is not yet enough. And the quality of all those grains of rice is what we take along into eternity. At the same time, it can be compared with a schoolwork at the end of a school year, and for some to a high school diploma, you have to prepare yourself. Now you can't take along any other means. The big day has arrived and the exam starts. That's the start of life, birth. Every person has received a test tailored for him, but we all are sitting in the same classroom, the earth. Some are now simply proving that they have learned to read and write. Some are on their final paper. For every student, it is important to pass the test. To pass the test, half of the results has to be positive. If now somebody faints and he has to leave the classroom too early, then this is a near-death experience. Of course, he takes his half-done test along. It will be viewed for a short moment to find out that still some important results are missing. That's the life review. Sometimes they are even shown what points are missing, raising kids or bearing kids, etc. Of course, somebody outside the classroom will reason with him and give him a glass of water, maybe taking him out to the playground. But in the end, it means you have to go back. There is still an important part of your task to be done. Your time has not yet come. That's the end of the NDE, and many people are shocked because they would prefer staying on the playground than to write the tests, what is absolutely and easily comprehensive. But in reality, it is an immense help. Rarely people with an NDE are aware of this. I was shown this clearly and distinctly in my NDE, and from this moment I was conscious that life is about succeeding this test, namely to get through positively. 3 exclamation marks. Which means for everybody who has had an NDE and was sent back, hurrah, you got the greatest help. You have been gently caught and empowered in a dangerous situation so that now you can continue your work on your life balance. Hurrah! You got the chance to conclude a positive test. Only those that are already have clearly passed more than half of the required positive results are being asked if they want to come back and are allowed to choose if they want to improve their grade or are satisfied with the result. Whereas in eternity, communication shows that there is joy and excitement if you freely choose to go back and continue for a better result. That was a great explanation. Question. Did you gain information about how to live our lives? Answer. Yes. We are all humans, and humans make mistakes, sometimes big mistakes. There is a key to shed sorrow and hurt. Sometimes this is superhuman and is called forgiveness, for yourself and for others. Otherwise, peace is not possible, neither here nor in eternity. With all my heart, I give thanks to my wonderful deceased child that she explained this to me just in time and that I could be saved spiritually and physically because of her. Love is wonderful, but to forgive is equally important, as only forgiving is relieving our souls from incredible strain and burden. Forgiveness is the twin brother of love. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about life's difficulties, challenges, and hardships? Yes. A hard fate is not a punishment due to karma, but rather an especially difficult test for the own life balance, with the expectation to master these challenges well. This means more work for eternity. That's positive. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about love? Answer. Yes. You are inextricably connected with the people you meet and affect in life. As long as things are running smoothly, there's no problem. Difficulties arise with challenges. When you experience something, when you have to forgive somebody, the challenge is to forgive others, because with this we are automatically forgiven at the same time. In my near-death experience, I experienced this myself. I was waking up as if being cleaned emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, with an enormous feeling of happiness, which is difficult to describe, peace, relief, and certainty that all will be okay, feeling like a new woman. Question. Do you have any psychic, non-ordinary, or other special gifts after your experience that you did not have before the experience? Answer. Yes. A. After death, contact with my deceased daughter at the funeral home. She distinctly told me, quote, "Mama, don't be so sad. I'm so glad that everything has ended," end quote. And B. I already had 3 different detailed and impressive premonitions a long time before the life-threatening accident. They had been thought to warn and comfort me, as I was clearly told by an angel in one of those premonitory dreams. Question. What did you believe about the reality of your experience shortly after it happened? Answer. Experience was definitely real. Because of my NDE and with the great unselfish help of my wonderful deceased child, I could still, during this wonderful event, come to forgive the person, my husband and her father, that I considered responsible for her death, because after the accident he didn't provide assistance. It's a story of fate, loss, death, silence, culpability, and expiration. The only possibility to emotionally overcome such a heavy guilt concerning life or death of somebody else is forgiveness. I'm not superhuman and couldn't have been doing this without my NDE. The internal accusation and constant assignment of blame would have poisoned my future life. My NDE is proof of eternity, all caps, as nobody can in such a short while forgive somebody who is involved in the death of your own child through denial of assistance. That's humanly impossible, and I several times pointed out to my child that such a thing is unpardonable. But at the end I did, through the newly gained knowledge from the place of truth in my NDE. The most positive effect for me was that automatically I was forgiven everything myself, everything until that point in time. And for more than a week, I had a constant internal euphoria, like being wrapped in love, despite the fact that my child died. Question. Is there anything else that you would like to add about your experience? Answer. It was big luck for me that during my extraordinary NDE with her, my deceased daughter opened my eyes for many things that I probably would never have understood or learned, and therefore I'm grateful with all my heart and without a grudge and bitterness about her sudden death and her short life. Her life was a positive and golden track of light and love in my life and in the life of many other people. Due to my NDE, I know with absolute certainty that my daughter is in splendor and eternity, and my sadness was reduced incredibly by this. She also told me that she was at peace with her short life and her sudden death, and that she forgave everything related to this. For me, my daughter is an incredible gift now and forever. In a certain sense, even more than if I never had experienced her loss and my NDE. She thus gave me an insight into the mystery of life and into the depth of human experiences that I don't want to miss. And I never would wish not having had to experience all this at the price that my child never had been existing. I always would have chosen her and the sadness solely that she did exist for a short precious time here on earth. End quote. Wow, what a story. What a story. And the explanation about coming back, and those that, oh, would you like to go back? You can go back, and those that, no, you're going back. She gives a pretty good explanation for that. And I think the life balance, being on the positive side of the life balance, and of course, forgiveness is the twin brother of love.